More people voted for us than we paid to vote. That's for a landslide. We used to say in Hope, where I grew up in Arkansas, that you know, if you didn't get the cemetery vote, you couldn't carry an election. You had to go down and get all those dead people to vote for you. Some people ask why I'm such a religious person. I tell them because, folks, I've seen the resurrection every election day. All those dead people went to vote. Two guys down the cemetery one day taking names off the tombstones on election day. One was writing them down, the other one was over there looking, and he said, "Did you get the name off that tombstone?" He said, "Well, I got all but this one over here." He said, "I couldn't get it." He said, "How come?" He said, "I couldn't read it." He said, "Get back over and get it again." He said, "No, it's so old and worn out, I can't read it. It just worn beyond recognition." He said, "I said, get over there and get that name off." He said, "I told you, I can't read it. I can't make it out." He said, "I want you to get the name off that tombstone. That guy's got as much right to vote as anybody else." Well, fortunately, all the people that voted for me in Ames that day were actually living people with a pulse, and fortunately an Iowa driver's license. But that stunning finish for us in Iowa, the straw poll, has turned the spigots on in many ways. We're getting national attention that we weren't getting. Our poll numbers are dramatically up in every one of the early primary states. We're seeing momentum. People are giving money that had been holding back and not sure that we had the capacity to win. Now they know we can. And it's not because we had more money. It's not because I'm a rich guy. It's not because I'm beholden to the special interest on Wall Street or the special interest on K Street where all the lobbyists in Washington are. It's because I connect with people on Main Street in real life America. That's why we do it. We don't know when the caucus is going to be because all these states keep moving up. They're trying to jump ahead of you guys. I wish they'd just quit and let you be first like it has been. It'd be fine with me.
Thanksgiving.
Well, I'm thinking somebody said Thanksgiving. If it gets much worse, it's going to be Halloween. And instead of a caucus, all the candidates will be dressed up in costumes and will go trick-or-treating. Whoever has the most candy will become the nominee. It may get to that. But what I do want to ask you, we need you on caucus night to be part of our caucus victory. We want to win Iowa on caucus night whenever it happens. And we've got to multiply ourselves many times over and to see even a greater type of stunning finish in the caucuses than we even did in the straw poll. And I'm confident we can do it. And you're going to be a part of it. Before you leave, I hope you'll let us know that you were here. Let us have your name and address and an email and a phone number. We won't bug you to death, but we'll try to make sure that you remember when the caucus is and get there for us. We'll keep in contact. We need you to get your friends and others involved and have them join us for that victory in the caucus as well. I really do believe that the presidency starts in Iowa. And the way that you folks tell the rest of the country you believe is going to have a far greater influence than you could possibly imagine. Let's not let the national media over there on the East Coast tell us who the next president is. I have a lot more confidence in folks who eat popcorn on a Thursday night in Bettendorf than I do folks who are sipping fine cocktails at a Georgetown social party tonight. Let me take just a couple of minutes. If somebody's got a question, I'll do that. I think we've got a satellite truck here. I think that's what this is. I've got to do a little comment for MSNBC tonight about 30, 40 minutes from now, and to react to the president's speech. So I'll get ready for that in a moment, but I want to see if anybody's got a question, if I can ask. Yes, sir.
What's your opinion on that MoveOn.org ad on trails?
I took out a strong statement that the ad that he's speaking of was in the New York Times. It was a full-page ad. I think it was one of the most despicable, disgusting, appalling acts of just vitriol I think I've ever seen in my life. And it made my blood boil for this reason. It's one thing if you disagree with the policies of the country. This is a wonderful country where people can disagree, and I respect that. And there are people who are just as patriotic as me, who love their country as much as I love mine, who have a totally different view of the war as me. It doesn't mean they're less patriotic. It doesn't mean they don't love America. It doesn't mean they don't love God. I want to be very clear about that. But you cross a line, my friend, when you take on a military commander who is currently taking people into battle for this country. And it's one thing to say you don't agree with his policies or you don't agree with his military tactics, but to accuse him of treason against his own flag, that is despicable. And I've called upon every person who wants to be commander-in-chief, be they Republican or Democrat, to denounce this nonsense from George Soros. Because if a person wants to be commander-in-chief of the military and refuses to stand by the very people who run that military, then that person has no business being commander-in-chief. And I'm waiting
Yes, do you know that both Clinton and Obama will not denounce that ad? I think that says a lot about their character.
I'm very disappointed, and frankly, I would really think that if they thought this through, they would realize what a huge mistake it is. Again, I do not question the patriotism of people or even the Americanism of people who have a different view of the war than I do. But you don't call our generals people of treason and dishonor, especially when he has a chest full of medals that he won for getting shot at. He's shown a lot more courage, a lot more valor and honor than most anyone I know. And even the people who don't agree with him have shown their respect for him, and they certainly should. Yes, sir? Feeling on illegal immigration, first of all, secure the border, because if you don't do that, nothing else matters. It has to be a true securing of the border with a fence. I want to be clear. You know, I say every day, I am thankful to God I live in a country people are trying to break into, and not a country people are trying to break out of. But folks, it is absurd when it's harder for me to get on an airplane in my hometown than it is for a person crossing an international border, when I have to have more documentation to get on an American Airlines flight in Little Rock, where they know who I am and call me by name, than a person comes over the border and stays years. I'm just trying to get to Iowa for a couple of days of campaign. There's something wrong with that, and everybody understands. Our Congress has failed us. One reason I think you ought to elect me as president, not somebody who's in the Congress, is because they've had a turn to get something done and they failed us. The person has not been faithful with the task they've been given. You don't give them a bigger task. You find people who have been faithful where they are, and you elevate them to a task to which they aspire. The second thing is, if we really want to fix the internal situation of the immigration problem, then part of it is you tie to the employers. Because if you don't do that, it'll never get fixed. And you have to make it so that people aren't able to take jobs without a tamper-proof documentation that they're here legally.
What are your views on the war in Iraq and keeping troops in Iraq for longer than just next summer?
What we've got to do in Iraq is to, first of all, realize that there were a lot of political mistakes made in how we approached it. But the biggest mistake we would make, the one that would break the spirit and morale for generations to come, not only of our military, but would endanger us for a long time, is to do what some in Congress are suggesting, and that's simply to tuck tail, ease out, and to say, we just can't stomach this anymore, and we're going to leave. We leave a complete vacuum in Iraq that would be filled by Al-Qaeda. We also create a situation where we dishonor the sacrifices of the men and women who have already served there. And we would end up finding ourselves having to go back at some point, if not in Iraq, somewhere else, and to fight this enemy. One thing that every person, I think, will tell you who has actually been to war, and I haven't, because the draft ended about 6 months before my 18th birthday in 1973. But they'll say to you this: war is about will. It's about, do you have the will to win? And if you show that you don't, what will happen is your enemy will be emboldened at a level that you can't afford him to be. And that the spirit of your own troops will be weakened at a level you can't afford them to be. And the net result is a far worse consequence. We should have gone into Iraq with a greater level of force to start with. We didn't do it. And we'll have to live with that mistake. But the bigger mistake is to simply follow the course of Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi,